Recording in progress.
There we go. We'll begin with, I think, just like a sort of one-liner, just like introducing yourself and what you do, obviously in the context of like what we're going to discuss. So, hey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, my name is Marantz. I've been making videos on YouTube for almost 3 years, and I talk about GameStop pretty much every day of my life since the day it stopped the clock back in January 28th. So.
Perfect. Okay, I guess, Marantz, let's sort of begin as best as we can at the beginning of all of this. Where would you say this began for you?
Well, for me, I was at work one day and I was talking with a coworker and he said, "Hey, you see what's happening with GameStop?" And I was like, "Yeah, I see it," but it really didn't mean anything to me because I didn't understand it completely. But when February came around, you had a congressional hearing, I started really paying attention to the movement and what it was. And I was enamored by the fact that all of social media was pumping out this information. They were saying GameStop and AMC were these new companies that you can fight against the hedge funds and you can change the economy, you can change the world, and you can get rich tomorrow. And I literally was like, I bought in with the idea of being an ape. You know, I was hitting my chest, I was saying, this is me, and my kids were looking at me. And then I stood there and I saw the market go up and down in March. I saw exactly what happened with GameStop on March 10th, 11th timeframe. And I was blown away. And then I saw AMC. I saw Adam Aaron do an interview, and I wasn't a believer at that point. I said, okay, here's where I need to put my foot in the road and say I'm on this side versus that side. And it wasn't a great way to start your YouTube career, unfortunately, because at the time, if you're positive about other stocks, then you would get more views and clicks. So it kind of dictates the content creation you make. But I wasn't even going to be a YouTuber. I had no idea that I wanted to do videos or talk to the masses. It was after watching so many people push out misinformation about GameStop, and I was doing my own research. On the retail side, I was reading balance sheets. I was understanding the pivot, the direction that they were trying to go. I said, well, wait a minute, no one's telling this story. You might get it in one-liner or two-liners, but those people were getting downvoted, so you couldn't read it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to make my own channel. And I started out with about 2 views a day. And it was pretty terrible. No one was coming. And that has grown from we were doing the first year about 500 views a day on the channel. We're over 10 to 20,000 views a day right now. So the amount of movement and investors that have been able to see the truth and come to it as far as how it's really playing out, even that is not enough. We're the small pocket of the internet. So that's how it all started. I was curious, I would say that.
It's interesting because it sounds like then, I guess you almost got started, I guess during when the mania was happening rather than kind of during the build-up of it. Yeah. Was there any particular reason why like you got drawn to the message itself of little guys versus the hedge funds? Was there any reason for that? Yeah,
I mean, you're always looking for the truth in it, right? So for like retail investors, I was big on other things, blue chip stocks and cryptocurrency. And then when I started doing homework on cryptocurrency, I was like, wait a minute, this is a crime. I felt it was the wild, wild west. As there was no rules, there's no regulations, and it's just a gamble. And I gambled on Doge, and I did quite well. And when that happened, I said, well, wait a minute, you mean to tell me Elon Musk can manipulate a tweet, and that makes the price go up? Like, this is not real. So when I found out it wasn't real, I wanted to get into something more concrete. I had been an investor in Costco stock for a decade. And I was like, okay, well, there's a real company, there's a blue chip company, or mutual funds for the last 23 years, whatever it may be. But I hadn't seen individual security really spark my interest. But me being a gamer, me understanding GameStop, me standing outside of the building, waiting in lines for launch day releases in the early 2000s, that was me. So I'm a gamer first, and then I went through it that route. So I let the investment take over with what I was already doing. If you can feel it, you can touch it, you can breathe it, maybe you want to buy it. And that was me.
Oh shoot, yeah. I think it's interesting because it felt like the GameStop, that initial spark that happened in early 2021 was, we saw the beginning roots of it started with the idea that actually GameStop is not a bad company, like that it has potential. And then it sort of then morphed into, I guess, the message of actually, guys, this is a way that we can also like stick it to the big guys. They made a mistake.
Well, that's what they call added value. So when you look at it, Roaring Kitty, right? Keith Gill, he went ahead and made the playbook. He said, this is an extremely undervalued company, considering it was trading at around $3 a share, and they had cash and shareholder equity worth $5 a share. So it's trading for below its cash value, which is crazy. Once you see that, you got to know it's wrong. And so that's what they brought light to. And even today, right now, GameStop's trading at around 25% shareholder equity per share. That tops out 99% of the S&P 500. So it's still extremely undervalued when you look at the cash position versus what it's worth. People need to know that it's extremely undervalued. But the added value is I can buy into this stock. It can go up, 5x, 10x, certainly from where it's at right now. But it could also cripple the hedge funds. It could turn over the whole market, because if you believe what the private equity angle is, I didn't know this part. Like you think you know it, you hear it in passing where people say, "Oh, you get the hedge funds, the short sellers, we're going to get them," but you don't know how deep it is until you see every other stock play out. Then you go, wait a minute, they were on that one, that one, that one. And it's like you figure out that they're pouncing. This is the phrase they use is called jumping, actually. It's the legal phrase they use in the courts whenever they're suing. But you have about 7 to 10 private equity firms jump onto a stock. And they all bet with the idea that it's going to go bankrupt, because they're going to make it go bankrupt. They're going to manufacture that. They're going to invest money in other things around it to put stress onto the company. And this is why GameStop's so different, because of Ryan Cohen and their venture fund, RC Ventures. He went ahead and put in his own money. He's his own captain, and he's fighting private equity. He pushed out private equity from the company, and they paid off all their debt, and now it's the true pivot, the true David versus Goliath story. And it's playing out in real time. It's going to take maybe a decade, maybe 5 years, maybe another year. Who knows? But I'm here forever.
Yeah, which I guess of those aspects initially drew you? Was it like the message, or was it just the idea that this is an interesting company, I think it has potential, like I'm in?
Yeah, I guess the biggest bang for your buck, understanding floats and volume. The initial thought process from a lot of people, and I'm talking about YouTubers and Red personalities, was that GameStop and or AMC, I should say, was a cheaper stock because it was less. The price was less. GameStop was at around $150 a share as it was pumping in March, and AMC was $10. Then people were, I can load up on AMC at $10, but they're not understanding they're buying into a float of 500 million, right? And GameStop's float was 70 million. So it's not the same apples to apples. You're literally getting a bigger position of the company for buying a share of GameStop right now at $80 at pre-split. GameStop this morning was 17. I have a buy order. I bought some. So $17 a share this morning, but the float's only 300 million shares. So it's a great buy for anyone who's getting a bigger portion of the company. But they have to understand floats, and they have to understand the simple mechanics of the markets, which a lot of people didn't at the time.
Would you say, did you get into GameStop prior, or I think it was after the whole incident with the buy button stopping? And
I bought it in February. I
see. Yeah.
I don't remember the date. I think it's somewhere right after the congressional hearing, because it was under 100, but then it spiked up the next day to 180. I remember aftermarket, and then by that Friday it settled down at around 99.60, if I'm not mistaken. I kind of remember most of it. I've been holding for 2.5 years. It's been forever.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That's what helped. I started buying in, asked my wife if I could, because we were saving money for a house. And glad to say we bought the house. And we did not sell a single share of GameStop, but we increased our position over the last 3 years, 2.5 years, 3x, 10x. I mean, it's been amazing how much shares we've bought, because I make it a daily routine to keep buying in. And the stimulus checks helped. And you go dump in an easy $3,000 to $5,000 in a drop. And as you kept going through it, you kept finding value in the company. And every earnings report looked better. Every press release looks better. No, they don't give out guidance, and it's the unsung hero. It really is. So there's just so much more in depth on the surface that people see. Oh, GameStop, a dying gaming company. I guess you could buy if you want to get back at the hedge funds, but you're going to have to outlast them. Or you say, hey, this is a true investment for a generation. And that's how I see it, me personally.
Yeah. I guess let's sort of, if we zoom in during this, like the early stages of when you started getting in, right? Because like where you're at now, like you got a channel on the whole thing, you talk about it like on a daily basis. Like it's interesting. I'm curious to know what like that journey was, the slow stepping from first just buying GameStop and then like getting more and more involved in the community. I don't know, did you end up like joining Wall Street Bets after that? Or?
No, so I knew Wall Street Bets was going, but at the time they were putting rules that you couldn't talk about GameStop. Now they were what we call infiltrated, right? So there was this thing, and now they paint us out to be GME elitist if we're GME, investors. But there was this thing where everyone says, "Well, you're an ape if you're invested into GameStop," and everyone looking around was like, "We're not apes. That's the AMC crowd." So we got associated with the crew that was saying, "Well, we hold both," and that's the loud minority versus the silent majority. So going in, it wasn't Superstock, or I'm sorry, it wasn't Wall Street Bets. It was Superstock. So there is a subreddit called Superstock out there, about 700, 800,000 members. Everyone's out there getting the information. And from that group broke off into about 4 different subreddits. So you would see like everyone's trying to get what Wall Street Bets has, but you can't, right? They're the original, and they compounded all the interest in the world to show you the value in what they call a loss porn, right? For the lack of a better term. Whenever they lose big on an investment, they want to post it and show it that they lost, $500,000, $300,000 upside down. And GameStop had to find a place where they could put all the information out there. And the GME subreddit on Reddit it was already infiltrated as well. So you went to Superstock. And from Superstock, a lot of people will tell you that they're infiltrated. I'm going to tell you, me personally, they're not. I have direct conversations with some of the moderators, and my channel.
What do you mean by infiltrated? If you
okay, sure. So a lot of people believe this, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, James, that the hedge funds, the private equity firms, own the media. If you look at the statistics, about 53% of all media is owned by private equity. I'm sure you can find the correct percentage if you Google it and figure it out, but I'm telling you, they own a lot. And I'll just give you this one connection. I know everyone wants to paint Ken Griffith because he's in the movie, right? And he bought and he helped out Melvin Capital and Gabe Plock, and he actually bailed them out with $4 billion, him and Steve Cohen, as collateral for the GameStop short. But what people also have to know is his ex-wife is on the board of directors at Fox. So when you own the media, you can manipulate the people. And stuff that you've never seen before, James, is this. You've never seen a YouTuber, any one of us out here, talk about GameStop in a positive light. We've never been on TV. They've never put us in front of a camera and talked about GameStop to the masses. But they have done it for Mullen Automotive. They have done it for AMC movie theaters. They've done it for Bed Bath & Beyond. They promote other stocks that private equity is already in. They control this media. The written media is the same way. When you're looking at these websites that people can go to and Seeking Alpha, you pay $35, you get your byline written. You can just put up any article you want for $35. So you can control the masses with media. And this is not like I'm thinking this through. I'm literally telling you and showing you. They were putting up YouTubers and using Twitter and Fox interviews in front of you during this time frame, during March, April, May, June, when they were pumping up stocks to do, quote unquote, for the better term, a pump and dump. And it's happened because you've seen the same stocks that were toe in toe with GameStop at the time. They're now worth 99% less than what they were 2 years ago. Numerous.
So when you say they infiltrated these subreddits, you're saying that they're like agents from the...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can imagine the misinformation that's put out there. I've had an individual myself come through the chat, start feeding me information, and you're trying to vet it all. But when I'm live streaming or I'm in a Discord or I'm in Twitter Spaces calls, they will give you the information and you don't know if it's factual or not. You don't know if it's true or not. But I kind of call it out right when I say, and I've been known to do that. You can't buy me, right? I don't have an affiliate link, even though I am affiliated with GameStop officially. They are my one affiliate, but I don't even post their link on the channel because I don't want them to write me a check. It's my investment. I don't have merch to sell. Nothing. I'm not here for that. But there's guys out there that were grifting off the same crowd in this movement. They've made movies. They've made websites. They've got you to buy other things. So yeah, you've been manipulated via the media plenty. And it's been out there for a long time, but it's been widely known. And when you see it, you call them, and then they delete their accounts or they delete the post and they vanish from thin air. I've seen, how many YouTubers have you seen delete their old channels because of this movement? Tons. tons. So I can only imagine who's infiltrated off the message of giving out misinformation. I don't know what to believe these days. You're scared out here.
Yeah, I guess on that note, so from what point in which you kind of got started, got involved in the Superstar, also side note, if you see me like looking down and typing stuff, it's just because I'm making notes.
You're good with me.
Okay, so I'll do that question again. At what point from when you bought into GameStop and then got involved into the Superstar community, when did you decide to make your own videos on the subject?
I had watched an interview of an AMC YouTuber who was promoting GameStop and AMC together, as in to say they are the same. And it was a military member. I'm former Army, and he was Army. His name was Trey Trades. And he was going to do an interview with Adam Aaron. And it was promoted, it was announced. But before he did that interview, he did an interview with Jordan Belfort, who is known as the Wolf of Wall Street. And he paid $10,000 for the interview. And everyone's like, oh, he's paying money out of his own pocket. And all I'm thinking is, he gets super chat money. That's your money, the investors, the people. They're all giving him tips on his channel so that he could pay for this. And it wasn't, where'd you get the 10,000 from, right? So the same thing has happened over time with like Matthew Kors, they call him Super Matt Chat, where he made 600,000 on Super Chats. And he put all that money up against his investment on AMC. And now he's able to tell people, well, I lost $600,000 on AMC. He lost their money, not his money. So that was my whole thing. When I saw Trey Trades do the interview with Adam Aaron, it made me believe that they weren't sincere of the approach. And I realized what they were doing. They were doing it for the movement, for clicks, for views. And I understood what it was because I'm in marketing, I'm in sales, I see it. And so I got on the camera one day, and my buddy at work, he convinced me. He goes, hey, you got to tell these stories. You got to tell the story of what GameStop is. You've been telling all of us. The minute anyone has been involved with GameStop since January, February, March timeframe, you literally have told all your friends and family about it. You went to Easter that year and you told them all, GameStop to the moon, buy in, let's go. And everybody says, shut up, get out of here, right? Like nobody wants to talk to you. So I wanted to find a way to make a video or give out some information that they could share with their friends and family and give them the true story of the transition, the pivot. I talked fundamentals. I wasn't a big, they're going to the moon, it's going to explode tomorrow. I had that in the back pocket as the added value for the investment. But my main thing was, what the pillar of strength for me was the fundamentals. It's undervalued. It actually is a great business model, and it has Ryan Cohen. And I was explaining Ryan Cohen's history and the direction of the company. But unfortunately, no one wanted to see the truth. They wanted the pump. They wanted the information that AMC is going to the moon. It's the next GameStop. And so I picked the path for my YouTube channel, and because of that, I was crippled initially. I would think I have 1 million viewers right now. Okay, I've seen your channel. Obviously, it's a lot bigger than mine. But in my mind, to have almost 9,000 is essentially 1 million at this point because of the struggle it's been to get the information out. But I'm happy for it. I started making videos and got some information out. Got some things right, and that really helped me out. It gave me some credibility. And GameStop's been proving us right for the last 2.5 years. So I'm very happy with that.
Oh shoot, yeah, damn. It's obviously it's grown since then. I'm curious as to like how things developed over time once you started uploading. Did you notice that an audience is either you were like received poorly to begin with, or did people instantly warm to you? Kind of what was that journey
the
like?
Same 5 guys. I've got like 7 samurai. I get the first 7 guys I ever really talked to. The moderators for the channel were great guys. There's one named Kyoto Exports. That's just his name. I know his real name. I don't know, but he's from Japan, right? So I don't really. I've sent him a T-shirt in the mail. It cost me like $120 to send it to him. I sent him a GameStop shirt because he can't buy GameStop apparel there, but he communicates well. I have another guy named Almo Nestor, who's my confidant. Ruben, Linda Rill, who's a bankruptcy lawyer, who's helped me out with following bankruptcies. And hot this year, there was another guy named Peppered with Salt who I haven't talked to in a couple of months. Unfortunately, I don't know how he's doing, but we have a crew, Ravenstown, whoever may be, right? The same guys show up every day. And they go, hey man, you're talking good stuff about GameStop. Keep going. Kind of motivate you. And I'm like, okay, can I trust these guys? You always ask yourself, can I trust them? Yeah, I can trust them. I know what it is. And now that I've gone this route, and if I left anybody out, if I didn't name them, well, then I apologize. But I've gotten to know, out of the 9,000 subscribers, I've gotten to know every single one of them. Like, there's not bots here. It's not like the bot views or anything, nothing like that. Actual investors that tell you their story, and I give them a platform to come do it. So when we're live streaming those 7-hour live stream days, like I was doing 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, they had somewhere to hang out and get the info. And I'm still going through it, still transitioning, but living my life while being on YouTube. But one day it'll all come rolling in when GameStop rolls in. People all come find out, and they'll be like, hey, who are those 9,000 guys that knew what the hell was really going on with this market? And it's just the ones who want to listen. But yeah, there's been guys out there pumping out misinformation for a long time, and I'm trying to fight the masses.
I think on that note, I'm curious because I guess to most people, including kind of myself when I was following the story, most people saw what happened in early 2021 and sort of said, oh, that's it. Like the short squeeze happened, everything kind of ended there, moved on with their life. And I think one of the key questions I wanted to ask myself going into this was like, well, why hasn't the movement ended then? What has happened since then? Because clearly something has happened for it to continue.
Yeah. So, and I don't mean to cut you off there. I know you're asking.
No, of course.
So there's a couple of anomalies have happened on the markets themselves. That's the first thing. And then the second thing would be Ryan Cohen. And we'll talk about him in detail. But the first are the anomalies, right? So when GameStop was halted January 28th, numerous other companies were halted with it. And it was as if they didn't know what to stop. They didn't know where the bleeding was coming from, but they were nervous that they were going to topple the system. After the report has come out that, if it would have kept going, numerous hedge funds would have collapsed, banks would have collapsed, everyone, because it's a domino effect at that point. But when they try to control the explosion and what they call swap out the short, the swap can be a lot of things. It could be whatever they're already long in. Because you have to have collateral. I hope everyone understands this part. You have to have collateral for your short. So if I'm short something, I better have something to offset that. Hedge it. That's what they're called, hedge funds. But I have to have a collateral. And most of the time your collaterals are blue chips and or other securities. So until you see Apple, Nvidia, the big boys come down in value, these guys can hold that short position forever. Or GameStop can keep increasing. If it keeps increasing, the leverage becomes too heavy. Now they'll try to attack it, double down and attack with everything they have. But it's only been 2.5 years, or almost 3 years now. It's not nearly long enough. You're looking at 5 to 10 years before they give up what's in the LP, as you would call it, the GP and the LP, the general partners and the limited partners for those funds that are deploying funds into the short position of GameStop. Private equity firms have around a 5 to 10 year window on funds invested. And if they can prolong it longer than that, I'd like to see it happen. Because the rich guys who have invested their money into those funds, they want their money, they want the profits, and they don't have them. GameStop has it. So we're holding them hostage. We know it. A lot of us do. But that's the added value. Because the truth is, why has no one left? Well, Ryan Cohen. Ryan Cohen is everything. Ryan Cohen is a guy who's young enough to make mistakes and still progress. He's a billionaire. He's teamed up with the right guys, with the right influence. And GameStop just announced a $2 million loss last quarter. And I don't know how people can paint that as bad when it's a $6 billion industry for them, like their portion of the industry. So when they're doing $6 billion worth of sales and you lose $2 million operationally, I'll just call that zero now. So I think they're in big trouble. GameStop's not going bankrupt. They have shareholder equity position of $1.2 billion. So if they lost $2 million in the quarter, what's $1.2 billion moving forward? It's everything. The difference between 2 million and 1.2 billion, 1.2 billion. It's that big. So yeah, that's why we're still here. Ryan Cohen's running a great business, and we're helping him, right? I mean, we're all shopping there. I know I am.
Got you. I think, and then I guess, and again, if I ask my question around Sony because I'm trying to understand better. So is the implication there that the hedge funds have not like exited out of their short positions?
So there was a report by the Financial House Committee that was distributed last year, and it was called the GameStop report. In the GameStop report, I made a video about an hour and a half long, but we broke it down line by line. It indicates that the volume for GameStop during that run, January, and subsequently after, right, was not the short sellers closing, it was retail buying. So it tells you they never closed. That's what the report tells you. Now, can they close over time? Sure. But you have to remember what happens in markets. You can move the risk. You can swap out the risk, but you can never eliminate it. It's sitting on someone's books somewhere, and they have to return it. So when you, and I have a theory, and my theory is so in depth and it's real as far as connecting dots that it can't be disputed until somebody shows me otherwise. And the theory that we've dug up here is in 2021, where they hid their swap and or their leverage, the collateral for the short, was in IPOs and SPACs. So if you do your homework on an IPO and a SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Company, the way it goes, they went ahead and launched over 700 IPOs in 2021. It was not a year of GDP growth. It was not a year, it was a year of inflationary growth. It was a year that interest rates started going up. So why in the world would you start growing companies during that time frame? Well, it's to hide money into SPACs. If you're familiar with a SPAC, it holds a share for 2 years. When you buy the shares at $10 a piece, if the SPAC company, it's a blank check company, if they never merge with another company, then you get your money back. It's like you park your $10 a share here for 2 years and you'll get your money back. Well, March of 2021, GameStop took off to the moon at 347. It got knocked down to $171 20 minutes later, and it evened out at 266. That told everybody everything. Said, this is it. This is the risk to the market. And what did they do? They deployed SPACs. So you can go and look it up. You can Google the info. IPOs that launched in 2021 were 700. Do you know what the average IPO number is for 2019, 2022, 2023? It's 100. They did 7 times the amount. That's a 700% increase over the initial amount of the companies launched just in 2021. They were hiding money into companies. They have no choice. You can't go hide it into Apple. You can't hide it into Microsoft because you can't buy into those companies without posing up red flags. But you can buy it into SPACs, and that'll be your leverage. Now, let's see what happened 2 years later. This is the best part about it. You might get another whole video about this part, James. 2 years later, after the SPAC boom of 2021, you saw a boom in banks. Regional commercial banks start falling apart, going bankrupt. And people are going to tell you it's because of interest rates. But when I went and looked at the balance sheet, I saw $18 billion worth of SPAC payments that had to be paid back within that month of March. So that's when you saw Signature Bank go under, First Republic Bank go under. You saw numerous banks go under, even Credit Suisse. And they had to go hide their leverage somewhere. And who did they get saved by? JP Morgan, B of A, Wells Fargo, and HSBC. So all these banks are covering for each other for the leverage that is. And you can't tell me it's any different because I saw it. I saw it expire. I know what it is. And they've been hiding. When I see a year in the SPAC world or in the IPO world where they launch more than 500 companies, let me know. I saw a year where they launched 700. And there's no way you would do it coming out of a pandemic. No way. They had nothing left. So I think it's just them biting down real tight. But me being a GameStop investor, I'm going to keep buying GameStop shares, and I want to see what really happens to the system because I think we have them on the ropes. But relatively, right? Like how long is it going to take? 3 years, 4 years? I don't mind. I'm young, just like Ryan Cohen.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've been trying to understand is, for example, if in the situation that we have where GameStop, there's actually a lot of potential here, and this stock is going to go up.
Yes.
Why wouldn't, I guess, other hedge funds or financial institutions jump on that opportunity?
You can't
as well.
Yeah, you can't You can't jump in, you can't buy GameStop because the people own it. You see, there was these days where they do these tests, the stress test, and you'll see GameStop spike up back in the day. This is like a year ago, 2 years ago. It would go up like $20 a day, $30 a day on no volume. You'd be like, how in the world did they get all this price discovery? How did they launch it? Like, how did it go? And it's because GameStop investors keep buying shares and they DRS the shares. So direct registering shares is a thing, it's a movement. It's never been done before. And it takes the shares out of the DTCC and it puts it in your own name. Therefore, you own them through computer share. Ryan Cohen's shares, all the insider buys that they do, which he's done plenty over the last 2.5 years, those are all DRS shares as well. The more shares you DRS, the less shares that are available to people out there on the open markets. But the way it works for you is that now makes the stock illiquid. Means that the volume is going to be so low like it is today. Remember, they did a 4-to-1 reverse stock, or a 4-to-1 split, I apologize, and the volume is not 4x. It's actually gone the other way. Instead of being 3 to 4 million shares a day, it's now 1 to 2 million shares a day, because it's even more liquid over time because people keep buying it and DRSing their shares. The reason why hedge funds can't buy in, there's not enough out there for you to even spark an interest. Ryan Cohen owns the largest position of this company, and that's because he wants to control it. If you ever want to buy into a company, a hedge fund, if you want to buy in any financial institution, they want to have control of their investment. A lot of the top guys want to own a large enough piece to have a seat at the table. Well, they're not welcome. Ryan Cohen has the smallest board of directors. It's like 5. And that's it. And they're controlling this company, and they're not making any announcements. They're not going to tell you what they're doing. They're just going to surprise you with it. So the investment is, this guy took a risk of his own, and he's managing his risk. And that's Ryan Cohen. And millions of dollars of his own liquid dollars. No one else can say that. If you had a GP come in, a general partner from like a private equity firm, they're going to be managing other people's money. It's not their own. So their investment prowess won't be the same. Their stance on the company won't be the same. They're looking to get rich now. They're looking for a churn now. And that's the difference from GameStop. GameStop is when we say power to the creators, power to the people, that's what it is whenever you buy a share of GameStop. It is the way you can fight, but it's also the way that you can find value in yourself. So it's absolutely the people's stock.
Interesting. I guess then on that note, where exactly do you see, or even you feel like the sentiment is at the moment with where GameStop stock trajectory is? Like, how much could realistically an individual share be worth?
I get asked this a lot. And so there's 2 ways of looking at it. One, you have to evaluate where you want to get out. Like, what's your risk assessment? Like, why did you buy? I don't know. A lot of people, it's all about age and how much time they have left. For me, I have forever, so I want to see how it plays out forever. But if you go back 30 years, I want to say 30 years right now. It's 1989. Yeah, it's about 30 years ago. The top 20 companies in the S&P 500, as far as market cap, none of them exist today in the top 20. My point being, no company, you don't really know the trajectory of the company 30 years down the road. You just don't. Nobody knew Apple was going to invent an iPod in 2001, going to create iTunes in 2001. 3 years later, their stock price would increase 3x. And then they're going to invent the phone, the pad, the watch, and now, the TV, and of course, the car coming up. Nobody knew this. So you can't make the investment to say, I think this is going to be this and this by tomorrow. I don't know how big GameStop's going to get. I just know that Ryan Cohen's smart enough, rich enough, young enough to try. And even if he failed, he can try again. So I'm betting on that side of the trade. Where could it be 5 years from now? With market manipulation, it can be anywhere. But fundamentally, the way I see the company, they're going to net a profit, T12, the trailing 12 months, coming up real soon. This quarter alone, they're going to see a swing, another $100 million swing, $70 million swing. After reading the balance sheet, after understanding the financials, GameStop is primed to shock the world. And they look like they're going to be eligible for the S&P 500 when they get the market cap in place. when the stock price eclipses $38 a share, $42 a share, they'll have enough to get in the prerequisites to get into the S&P 500. And then it's mandatory buy-ins for index funds. You'll see it everywhere. People will tell you they got to get it. And here's the problem, James, this is God's honest truth. You can't find it. You can go buy them $17 a share, but let somebody really try to move this market. Let somebody really try to buy in. You could be the Canadian Investment Board Teachers Fund, the CalPERS teacher, and all these huge funds that have tons of money, retirement funds that want to buy in to these stocks, individual securities, and you can't do it. You would move this market so much with this much volume. They've been knocking us down for so long. The days to cover on short interest for GameStop is almost 30 days. When people say it's only short 19% reported, okay, well, that's 60 million shares. How many shares do you think they trade a day? Like 1 million, 2 million. You could never dream of closing the short position on GameStop because that's just what's reported. I can't even imagine how big it's going to be.
I see. So again, this is just from my understanding. So
sure.
Is the idea there that a large portion of, I guess, what would you, refer to the GME community, if apes maybe isn't the right?
Retail investors. Just retail investors. Yeah.
If a large portion of retail owns the float of GME, is the implication there that in order to actually close out any short positions, it's really going to be up to the retail to decide? We used to
have this thing where we would say, pick your price. This is way back in the day. Like, hey, just pick your price. You can jump off this ship anywhere. And people would come up and they'd be like, hey, I want $1 million a share. I want $100,000 a share. They even had the 500K a share, hashtag for a lot of other companies. And for GameStop, it's like, well, what's your price? And I would tell you, the more you buy, the more you have, your price is lower than other people's. But as you hold it in what we call diamond handed, you're never going to sell at the prices they want to sell for because it's more valuable to you. I've been holding for so long. I've been making so many videos. I've been talking about it so long. It's very valuable to me. So much so that I say I'm never going to sell. And people tell me this all the time. So, Marantz, how can you say you're never going to sell? I don't need the money. I go to work every day. I have a career. I have family that I care for, but that's building wealth. I'll be able to hand it off to them. What's it going to be worth then? I don't know. How great is the company going to be? I don't know. But I'm investing for it. I'm going for it.
I see.
That's where it matters.
Do you think there'll ever be a situation in which you will sell your shares of GameStop?
Sure. Is that the answer?
Yeah. Well, I guess under what conditions would you decide to sell?
It'd be a family decision. Wouldn't be my own. Ideally, my wife tells me, don't talk to me until I don't have to work anymore. Things like that. But we're not children. We've done well for ourselves, and I'm not needing the money that I've put in anytime soon. I don't have a college fund that I'm saving up for that. I don't jeopardize the future. We use the phrase diamond hands, right? And people have used this loosely all over the world. And this is why GameStop's helped educate so many investors, retail investors. We literally go read balance sheets now. We read press releases. We know all the information right when it comes out. You've never seen this before. The informed investor. That's what we really are. And when you say the words diamond hands, it's like, well, you have to live diamond handed to be diamond hands. You have to not over leverage yourself. You have to live within your means. Don't spread yourself thin, and understand your position. So I'm not going to over leverage myself to where I have to sell. So when it came time to buying the house, I was telling a lot of my investors, I don't want to say my investors, oh my goodness, no, I don't speak that way. I'm telling a lot of the subscribers to the channel, I was like, hey guys, GameStop is a great investment for a lot of people, but for me specifically, I didn't have to sell a single share to buy my home. That was it meant so much to me that I didn't have to sell it to go ahead and buy the things that were a necessity to me and my family and to still have growth. So I'm happy to do it that way. I'm happy to lay on the shares forever, and I'll hold so someone else could sell, someone that needs to.
I see. So it's sort of like in a situation where, even if theoretically, your GameStop position went to zero, it's not like that would be
James,
like the end of
James,
yeah,
it's not possible.
yeah.
And I want to tell you just how improbable that is. I know a lot of people are like nervous when they invest and or they say it's going to go to zero because they saw Bed Bath & Beyond evaporate in front of us. AMC's lost 99%. GameStop has a couple things in their back pocket. They have $100 million earmarked for share buyback, which would help.
What does that mean?
So no problem. So the share buyback program for GameStop initially was $300 million. They bought back their shares when they were down at $3 a share. And the reason why they buy back their shares is to take them off the market and increase the value of their shares. But they're buying them at the devalued price. They know that they're worth more than that price. So whenever you see a stock come down to what they call below fair market value or below book value, you would see a company buy back their shares. You should. And the price should increase. Seldom do you see companies buy back shares with their cash and the price decreases. It's not supposed to happen that way. But it did happen for Mullen Automotive. It did happen for Bed Bath & Beyond. And those are because those companies have private equity within them. That's the difference. They manipulate, manufacture those outcomes. That's been widely known. GameStop's not that. If you want to lower the price of GameStop and short it all the way down to the ground, GameStop will fight you back by buying back their own shares. They've done it in the past, and they have $100 million ready to rock just in case they do it again. Additionally, it'll never get there. Everyone in the world that I know, retail investors, will just come out of the car. They would sell their homes, their houses. I'd probably sell my left foot just to buy more GameStop at that point because there's no way. There's no way you're going to get it below the price points that people think. Like I've heard people say Wedbush analysis was $7 a share, $6.70 a share. The cash alone is at $4.15. So where's the value in the company? You're telling me the company's only worth $2? Assets and business, and there's just no way. It's not true. $2 a share on 300 million shares would be $600 million for the price of GameStop. The company, the brand, no way. No way, no way, no way. So that's just the value. If you understand the value proposition of what GameStop is. I don't remember the other part of the question you were saying, so I apologize.
No. I think that answers it. I guess I'm just curious about like if we throw around like hypothetical scenarios of what could it take to potentially like if there was something that could dissuade you or make you sell.
Yeah. And the negative,
I guess,
or the positive.
Yeah, or even. I guess the initial question was first, like, if GameStop did hypothetically go to zero, like, are you saying that you're kind of in a position where it's like, it's okay, it's not like going to be, it's not like your life savings has gone into this and it's...
Oh, yeah, no.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, no, my life savings is not in GameStop like that. You know, I have about 20 more years of making money. So I feel like my net worth will increase just based off the way I invest. But I'm not one of the I'll write it to zero guys. I'm not one of those guys because I don't have to. The investment itself is safe as long as I see Ryan Cohen behind the helm and I see that they make the right moves business-wise. They've made some mistakes along the way, but they've fixed them. They've gotten past them. They're just hurdles. So I find positive in everything, and not that I'm not negative or not that it's an echo chamber for me. I just know the negatives when I see them. I'm like, okay, let's get past that. And then I go to the next quarter, and guess what? They progress and they do well. So I'm living it quarter to quarter. I'm looking at it. I always revisit the story, revisit the investment every quarter with the channel, with the investors. I watch the channel, and I've held my ground. Been okay. So that's where I'm at. I'm not selling though. No.
I guess, I guess circling back, because I don't even think we finished off on the points that you were going to make about like GameStop's future and why you think it looks promising. The first thing you mentioned was the share buybacks, and I think you said there was two other things. Yeah,
so they can't go bankrupt. That's what I was saying. You know, they have the ability to dilute the float an additional 700 million shares. With having that in your back pocket, you know, so there's this string on the balance sheet at the very bottom, and it says shareholder equity. And shareholder equity means that this is how much your shares are worth to the public. But when you see like $1.2 billion on a balance sheet, and everyone's looking at that number like it's not a lot, you have to think about the amount of shares that are out there. In addition, They have zero goodwill. This is what that means is there's no propped up balance sheet. It's not fake. It's just nuts to nuts. It's actual cash and business. It's black and white at this point. You'll see a company like Disney. Disney's balance sheet looks like they are worth $110 billion, but it's $90 million of goodwill. I'm sorry, $90 billion of goodwill. And what that means is they bought something. They took a loan out. They have, these senior notes and these bonds that they owe money to. GameStop paid off all their debt in 2020. They owe $0 in debt. They have zero debt, meaning they could take debt out. They could actually borrow money if they had to, but they don't. They refuse to borrow money. They're like a disgruntled 30-year-old that had credit problems in their 20s. They're literally not going to take a credit card out. They're not going to overspend. They're going to sit on their hands. And this is all on the advice and playbook of an individual, a CEO named Mark Vadden. Not enough people talk about Mark Vadden and the influence he has on GameStop and Ryan Cohen, and they should. But nobody knows who Mark Vadden is. He's like the Wizard of Oz. So Mark Vadden is a entrepreneur that has survived during the age of Amazon in the background, and he's a billionaire. And he has mentored Ryan Cohen. I saw an interview of Mark Vadden in 2014 where he mentioned Ryan Cohen indirectly. He says, I know a guy who's 27 years old and he's on top of it. He's an entrepreneur. He wants to be this. He wants to be that. He started talking about him. But in that same interview, Mark Vadden explained right now the dynamic of being a CEO or a chairman of the board for a company thriving in economic distress like we are right now. It's hard to borrow money. It's heavy. Covenants are heavy right now. If you borrow money, the banks will own you. And that's why GameStop does not borrow money. So I think Ryan Cohen is doing great by listening to Mark Vadden's advice. If you guys don't know, Mark Vadden was the CEO 2 years later after that interview of Chewy, Ryan Cohen's company at Chewy. So they have a direct relationship. It's indirect. Obviously he's helping them. I can see it. He's a student of the game, and I love, Ryan Cohen just might be the next Warren Buffett, and he's young enough to run it that way. So if people know what's happening, and if they believe in it, well, I'm a believer. That's just me.
Yeah. I was actually going to say it in the sense of what would happen if, let's say, Ryan Cohen decided to leave GameStop for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would really rethink my investment and find out what his reasons for leaving and what's happening next. Did he leave it in a better space? What's the balance sheet look like? At that point, I would treat it like all my other investments. Right now, I don't. Right now, and if people say don't get emotional about investments, that's just not true to me. There's so many people that have brand recognition for things that they buy and do. There's certain individuals who say, I'm an Apple guy, and they only buy Apple. I'm a Tesla guy, and they own a Tesla. Well, I'm a GameStop guy. I'm a gamer. And so I will see it from that standpoint. But right now, I'm a firm believer in Ryan. The added value would be the manipulation of the markets and the stock itself. But the more eyes, the merrier. The more vote, the more focus on what it is, then people will have the right information.
Got you. I think that's the part that gets, it's interesting to me, but also, it was almost sometimes uneasy whenever, I see, because it's a very active community inside of, the GameStop, and we'll probably talk about, AMC, Bed Bath, etc. But I sometimes, watch it and feel a bit of, typical investing advice, or when people get into investments, is never to feel it's like you said, it's don't get too emotional about your positions. But then you often see a lot of people going, I'm going to ride out to zero. I don't care. We're never selling. And you'll hear a lot of that. And then part of me is sort of you hear it and you're like, oh, I don't like that. That sounds risky.
Sure.
And I guess I'm just trying to understand what. For some people, it almost feels like it's more than just that investment. It's not just an investment,
right?
Or there's some level of a further buy-in there. Whether it's this idea of sending a message to a bigger person, or what it is. I guess what have you noticed with the people that you've interacted with and your experience in the space with regards to how the community sees the investment, whether that's just an investment or whether it's something much bigger than that for them?
Sure. So I've had to navigate out here and see all spectrums, like all sides. And they'll come out and they'll say something like, hey, don't get too emotional. I'm not. Or they'll write covered calls and sell cash secured puts. And they're playing the derivatives market where they're making bets on the stock and they're making money that way. So I just buy shares. I'm just an investor in a company that I like. And these guys I've seen them from all different acts, where they go, hey, I'm not emotional. I don't like what's coming out of the company. I'm gone. And then they badmouth me on the way out the door. And they'll come back a year later and they're like, hey, man, you were right. It's still a good company. I'm still buying back in, things like that. So people have their own stance. I don't try to influence what they buy or what they do. The information I give out has been a timeline, and I've kind of tried to document my time as far as how I buy it and why I hold. And that's what I'm documenting, for my children to watch the videos later. So when they say, well, what was Dad doing all those years? And why was he doing it this way? And it was because I like the investment. I like the idea of it. But people are, there's all different types. So there's some guys who are just in it for the week. Some guys are in it for the year. And I encourage everyone, you go and get your information you need. You make a choice. But I don't shun you either way. I've seen it in my own community that we built. I mean, you figure we have a Discord of almost 1,000 people, and they come in and they say their part, and it's completely free, and it always will be. We don't charge, we don't do any of that. And the guys that come in, they'll just, give you hell about GameStop and why it's so terrible. And it's a dying industry, it's digital, all the rest of it. And I sit there and I take it all in, and I get the best of both worlds. I try to figure out the negatives, and then I try to see if I can give them some insight on what GameStop is and where it's going. But there's some great stuff coming for GameStop. People are they're oblivious to it, and or they look at the failures. I'd be remiss to remind everyone that GameStop failed on the NFT wallet initially. The platform of the NFTs, the adoption of it, are they early? Probably. Extremely early. But there's aspects of crypto that are not regulated. And they said that. And that was the reasoning for getting out of that space. So I respect for them to make the announcement that they were wrong, which they did. And they're going to just get away from that side of the business, but it's okay. You made a fail. It cost you some money. It cost you time. But you can recover and you can move on to the next part of it. So I think it was a learning experience for them. It was always a learning experience for me because I've never been a big fan of crypto. I've said that publicly on the channel so many times, but it's not regulated, and I'm happy to see the next step for GameStop, and maybe they do get the NFT platform figured out, and maybe they find ways to get regulations built into it. But it was really fun when it happened. I mean, I was all over it because I wanted it to work, but it didn't initially. But we'll see where it goes from here. I'm ready to see Ryan Cohen try again, and I'm invested for that reason.
Yeah. How much, I guess, Marantz, do you sort of look into, or I guess buy into the concept? Because whenever I see people talk about, for example, things like the MOAS, this becomes like a really big idea for them. I know we spoke about the aspect of the retail decides, what price they want to sell. Like, how much of your position in GameStop or your understanding experience of it is about that rather than it is about just the fundamentals of the company itself?
I would say 1% is MOAS, 99% is fundamental. And that transition happened for me the more I studied, the more I figured out what the investment was, who Ryan was, what GameStop is, the industry we're in. But that 1% can annihilate the world. It really can. I only do that because I'm part of the company that under promise, over deliver. I'm part of that side of it where I love the fundamentals of the company. I think it's great. I understand it, but that MOAS aspect, yeah. I mean, let me tell you something, James. I don't know if they have this wherever you're from, but for where I'm from, we have the lottery. We have the state lottery. We have the Powerball. We have the Mega Millions. And every time the ticket's at $1 billion or 500 million, somebody walks into the damn store and buys a $2 ticket. They don't think they're ever going to win. They put that ticket in their pocket And they probably go to sleep at night. They probably dream about what they would do if they did win. Well, I have a lottery ticket. I have a lot of them. I have a lot of lottery tickets in my pocket. And the chances of me winning are better than that. So, is that MOAS? I'll let it ride out that way. But I've got my ticket in my pocket. And if it happens, it was nice knowing you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always a bit, whenever I do see some of the MOAS talk, again, it's one of those ones where it's hard to know, like in some of the scenarios painted out when it comes to this idea of like a MOAS happening, some of the scenarios seem so, it's like the idea that GameStop's market cap is going to grow to literally larger than every company combined. It's like when these sort of scenarios are painted out, it's like almost, it's tough to not see it and feel a little skeptical around like some of that and some of the claims, at least with like what I found when looking into it. I guess parking that aside, unless you had any thoughts you wanted to add in.
Yeah, you make me laugh. You're making me laugh, You're looking at GameStop's market cap and you're not realizing like the other part of it, okay? There's this thing called infinite risk. And infinite risk is a mantra by a GameStop YouTuber by the name of Cosmic Lightning Warrior. It's not around that much right now. He went away a while back, but I still pay respect to him for what he did for the movement. Kept a lot of people motivated. But he said infinite risk, and we all knew what it meant. We know what it means. You see, it's not about market caps. It's about the fact that private equity firms all bet on one thing. And they've done this since the beginning of time. They went and bet on certain securities to crumble, and then they manufacture that outcome. That's why my Connecting the Dots series exists, because I show you how they plant executives on boards to manipulate that company. That to be honest, is a clear case of that. But with that being said, when everyone jumps onto one company and everyone starts what they do, vulture capitalism, they start tearing it apart piece by piece. They're carving out the assets, the logistics, the inventory. They tear out the distributing centers. Everything you want, they take. Now, when they went to GameStop, a lot of people don't know this, but they've been in it since 2007, 2009, private equity. They came in and they jumped in it. And they were starting to tear it apart. And the way you tear it apart is you over leverage it. So you tell GameStop to expand. And you expand everywhere. And you overspend. And they did that for a decade. That's why the fix was in. The whole world was betting on GameStop to go under, to fail. And when Roaring Kitty, Keith Gill, started doing the math and said, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Why is the price at this price point? It shouldn't be. They had a goodwill impairment charge and a loss of $1 billion on the books. Why? They were worth something, but the share price was so far down, it got gutted. The whole world bet against GameStop. So when you say you can't see the MOAS being as big as it can be, well then go tell all those private equity firms how much they're all about to lose for making the wrong bet. They're all manufacturing and manipulating outcomes to combat GameStop. This is why when you push out private equity from your board of directors, like Ryan Cohen has, he's not done fighting. He's got to worry about supply chain issues, the logistics of it, the freight. Yellow Freight just went bankrupt from Apollo. Like the third largest freight company in the world. Do you know what their contracts are with? They have contracts with GameStop. So when you see every company out there going bankrupt, and they actually built up the infrastructure of what GameStop has to form new relationships. So yes, everything's going to fail. This is how MOAS happens. They all have to go down, but they're going to fight you to do it. They're not going to go down. They want to fight you till the end. But I've seen the financial crisis happen. And when you see the interviews from King Griffin, he said, hey man, we were down and out. We were about done, but we fought until the last day, and then they survived. They're like cockroaches. But I've seen private equity fight this out for 50 years and destroy companies from within. And I document it. This is one that they didn't destroy. They lost. And the people know it. We buy it, we hold it, If you can't see MOAS, if you can't see that 1% of my investment is for that, right? Just the thought of it, that gets me enough to get to the next day. That's all it is, James. And I'm telling you, $1 trillion isn't enough. It's not. Because you couldn't imagine Apple being worth $3 trillion. But if that's what they're invested in, they're going to lose a lot of value. Everybody is. Because they're holding blue chips versus GameStop. And when GameStop becomes a blue chip, now what are you going to do? You can't short it when it's in the S&P 500. You can't. Because you're going to have to short the whole S&P 500, and that's the collateral to it. That's what we're telling you.
Is there any like specific sort of private equity that you would say is kind of important to look into or be aware of?
My brother, that is another rabbit hole. I love you. I love you, James. I've seen your work. You could do, if you were to watch private equity videos, the ones that have been made on the channel, Connect the Dots, you would have content for you and your team for documentaries for a lifetime. You guys would go into it and go, oh my God, I need to go make one about that, about that, about that. I mean, it would just go like that. And I managed to crank them out in about 2 weeks' time with no edits, no cuts, one take session, 1 hour long. And it was painful. You know, I'm not like you. I'm not eloquent. I'm not cut like you. But I promise you the information is that good. And when you see it, when you follow Apollo and you see where they came from, the origins, and this is off, I don't even know if we're recording at this point, James. I want you to know something. There's a video called Connect the Dots Part 17. And that tells you everything you'll ever need to know and why I feel the way I do about GameStop, Bed Bath & Beyond, AMC. It gives you it's the origin story of how it really went down. But once you watch that one, then you're gonna watch them all and you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. But it's the truth about GameStop. This is the part about GameStop that nobody knows, other than Ryan Cohen. And Ryan Cohen found this out when he went over to Bed Bath & Beyond. You see, there's a Bed Bath & Beyond subreddit out there. There's a groupies out there that make videos, and they're all pumping the same idea that Ryan Cohen's gonna come in and save them with their Bed Bath & Beyond investment. And he's not. He tried to go over there, and he found out what it was. Private equity was so embedded in Bed Bath & Beyond, you couldn't fix it. And that's what we proved. And that's why we got the hell out. I was invested in there, and I got out of there. And a lot of people did. And because of what happened. And when you do the homework, it's undeniable what's happening at GameStop. And it's going to be bigger than that. It really is. I love the fundamentals. I think it's going to go 5 to 10x in the next couple of years, just based off of fundamentals. But when you start talking about MOAS and them forcing to close and how it can get, now you're talking about 100x. So yeah, you can see $1,000 a share. You can see 2,000 without a doubt. I'm not worried about market caps. I'm worried about infinite risk. Them losing on the plus side of the investment. And they're all short. It's called the everything short theory. It's out there. You got to read that one too. But so much DD out here, James. We've been doing it for 3 years, right? Like every day. You couldn't get it all in one doc. You can try. Yeah. No, I've noticed. I mean, I've like even doing the research. There's so many different things we've kind of had to jump into and understand. I guess. Well, yeah, actually, I think maybe that's a good segue into kind of looking at the other communities. What would you say has been the difference between? I know we talked about a few of them, but like the difference between the Bed Bath and AMC sort of camps versus GME. Well, GameStop investors work for a living, and I'm not assuming, I'm telling you. We literally don't hang out online all day. So you'll see the engagement for Mullen Automotive, Bed Bath & Beyond, and AMC. You'll see the engagement for those communities flourish throughout the day. You get crazy views if you do a positive video. I have never, to this day, done one positive video for any of them because I knew what they were. I knew what the board of directors were. I knew where they came from. Let's take AMC first. AMC at the helm is Adam Aaron. He is a former executive and worked for over a decade at Apollo Global Management. He has run numerous companies that Apollo Global Management runs, and that's the nature of it. So if you know he's coming from private equity, you know he's coming from the birth of it all, that's Apollo. So there was no way that investment was going to be worth anything. If you look at the board of directors, you know, if people don't know about Epic Games, I'm sure you've heard of Fortnite. Fortnite is the killer of GameStop. The idea of it, it's revolutionary. You had a console recycle and Fortnite release all at the same time. It was like GameStop was meant to go under on that 2018 run, 2017, 2018, 2019, and they didn't. But go look at who's invested money into Epic Games, and that'll tell you everything. Like, people are pumping. It was KKR, by the way. KKR, and that's Kohlberg, Kravis, and Roberts. They went ahead and pumped money into Epic Games, and they were on the board of directors at GameStop. How in the hell are you able to do both? Pumping money into the thing that's killing GameStop, and then you're also in control of GameStop. That's a big red flag for me. And that was at the time that was happening. But the reason why I bring that up is because part of the board of directors for AMC movie theaters, Epic Games chairman of the board. So Adam Weissman or something like that. He's on the board of directors at AMC. So AMC they're embedded with private equity, and every decision they've made has been that. They were bought out by Apollo in 2001. They merged with JP Morgan in 2004. They sold off to Wana and JP Morgan in 2007. They have done numerous private equity deals. That whole story is an amazing story for people to lose money. They have sold off every ounce of their private equity. Apollo is in the same building, the Salo building in New York, as Silver Lake, who they sold bonds to. KKR was not in that building. It was another hedge fund. There's like 3 other hedge funds that they sold positions to. And Avon was in that building. Now, people don't know about Avon because they sell, they sell door to door in a little magazine, whatever. But Avon was in the Salo building for 30 years. So when the board of directors of Bed Bath & Beyond were all Avon employees, it tells you that they planted these people into Bed Bath & Beyond from Avon. They were in the same building. The same private equity firms are there too. So Harriet Edelman, I believe that's her name. She was the chairman of the board for Bed Bath & Beyond. Gustavo Ornell, unfortunately, he jumped off of a building. He was the CFO at Bed Bath & Beyond. He was at Avon as well. All these guys worked in the same building as Apollo. That is my point. It's all about proximity. And the unfortunate part is they want you to believe that it's Robinhood. They want you to believe that it's Citadel. And they're okay with blaming King Griffin for this movement and the fight for hedge funds. It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with KKR, Apollo, Carlyle Group, Bain and Company, and TGP. I'm just naming the big ones that I can remember. But if you saw the SEC probe that was announced last night, they have recovered over 1,000 messages and devices from all those hedge funds that I just named, and they're doing a probe on their WhatsApp messages back and forth to each other for market manipulation. So when I tell you it's real, connect the dots between private equity and what they've been doing. The SEC is aware. I just don't think they can do anything about it. The SEC directors and commissioners have all been hired by private equity. So Rob Bernanke, the former chairman of the SEC, he was hired by Citadel. You had Jay Clayton, who was recently hired by Apollo, and they hire them all. So there's nothing you can really do. The bosses of Gary Gensler are hired by those private equity firms. So it's going to be really hard to clamp down on these guys. But that's just where I'm at with those other investments, with private equity being embedded in them, and it's been known. It's widely known. So you can see a bankruptcy coming from a mile away. You can pick them, and when you pick them, you tell the whole world, "Hey guys, by the way, a year ago I said this. Bed Bath & Beyond's going bankrupt," and everybody called me crazy. And guess what happened? A year later, they're bankrupt and they're torn apart. So you can see it coming from a mile away. I have another one coming. I'll give you the tip. Kohl's, 5 to 10 years from now, will not exist, and/or it'll be sold off privately. They're going to go under because I know who's involved. It's that simple.
Did Ryan Cohen ever mention anything about private equity when he left Bed Bath, or what did he say on leaving?
So if you saw the interview that Ryan Cohen did, he said they asked him at the very end of the interview he did with GME. I don't even want to give them any pub because they manipulated him into doing the interview from what was just released yesterday as well. Oh my goodness. But what he said at the very end of the interview, he said, I've never seen a company do a share buyback program and the price go down. That's when he knew it was time to leave. They didn't have the same agreement. The reason was they were using their cash to buy back shares when they didn't need to. When you used all your cash, you're now broke. They have nothing left. Now they got to file for bankruptcy. It was kind of right on the wall. You saw it happening. But Bed Bath & Beyond did over $9 billion worth of share buyback over the course of like 5 years. You just don't do it. And they're using up all their cash to buy back shares, even though they were getting manipulated from within. There's 3 hedge funds over there. There were so many plants. And Connected on Sports 17. I want you to watch that one. That's it.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah.
I've got it written down here.
No, they were good. Yeah.